interest shown on the floods by different stakeholders in the city. I must confess to you that I was telling Mr. Madhu that since November last, I have so since November last, I have addressed something like easily 50-60 meetings only on floods in different parts of the country, not just in Chennai. It really shows that people have shown enormous interest on the flood this time, not on the 2005 flood and not on any other previous floods, but on 2015 flood. There was so much of interest, mainly because this time the flood did not see the whom it should affect. It cut across religion, caste, class, space, everything, and something like 80% of the Chennai and its very urban locations were affected by the flood. And according to the National Remote Sensing Center, the flood level went up to something like 35 feet, the depth of the flood in some parts of the city. So that is the kind of the intensity of the flood this time. That's the reason why also so much of interest. Now, I have been talking about this flood for so long, but as I was telling Mr. Madhu, that it's not quite talking the magnitude, you all know about it. And you also know the kind of a damage it has done. You have been also party to a lot of relief activities, and I read about it. It's very generous, and not just you, many organizations all over the city and from all over India, and people really were very generous. And this time, the people's mobilization around flood is just amazing, particularly the youth. It's a fantastic job they did, and therefore, if people could really save themselves and could come out of the flood, the fury of the flood, in a span of something like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it is because of the war-whelming activities and the support given by the civil society and civil society organizations. Now, therefore, apart from that, I don't really talk about this flood per se anymore, but I want to really give you some idea about what is exactly the disaster management and where are we. What exactly we mean disaster management in theory and what exists in practice. So I want to really focus on that. And if you think I'm talking too much, and if you don't like it, please let me know. Because this was prepared for a different audience. Because this is supposed to be a presentation I'm going to make to the university students. So you may not, it may be just too much and you may not have time to listen to this. At any point of time, if you think this is too much, please let me know. I'll be very happy, and I will stop and I will conclude. Now, next one. Can somebody help me? Sorry. What actually is important is that we really have to conceptualize the issues. We have to really differentiate between hazards, extreme events, and disasters. We have been loosely using the word disaster. We have been also talking about the hazards and the extreme events. What exactly do we mean? Is it really the disaster, or are we talking about the hazard, or are we talking about the extreme event? These three are different. In fact, the hazards and extreme events, if its intensity goes up, it could be disaster. Okay. So what exactly do we mean disaster? Disaster is catastrophic. It is absolutely catastrophic. So there is going to be no resilience. For people are going to take years or sometimes months and years to get themselves up and then get back to the normalcy. But then in the case of the hazards and the natural event, it's not that bad. One can really come up and one can pick up and the routine in a short span of time. But sometimes even in an extreme event, and even sometimes even a natural hazard can become more hazardous, and its intensity can really would sound like a disaster, like what happened in 2015. So that is something which we really need to which we need to understand. How does it happen? Take 2015 flood. It is actually extreme rainfall year. Okay, we have received something like 40 centimeters of rainfall in 24 hours, and it's upper rainfall of the century. And one can also say that is this something unmanageable? There is a question mark. Or is this, should this really become that damaging? So these are some of the issues, or should we really call this a disaster? So these are some of the issues that we really need to address. For instance, in the US, they've got something like a benchmark year. The benchmark year is in a particular city, they take the worst year in the 100 years and then design the city accordingly for the flood management. Okay. And now US is now revising it. No, 100 years is not enough. So they are going to take the worst year in the last 300 years. So that is the benchmark. So the worst year in the last 300 years will be taken as the the worst year in terms of the flood, and then design the city accordingly so that you are saved. So this kind of a disastrous year could happen, say once in 60 years, once in 70 years, once in 300 years, one doesn't know. Whereas in this case, for Chennai flood, there is no benchmark. We don't have a benchmark. On what basis are we designing our city? On what basis we are talking about the flood, handling the flood? On what basis are we saying that this is a disaster? We don't have a benchmark. So the disaster can be, you can call it a particular, you call it a disaster only in relation to something. This is not independent. Therefore, in this case, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Therefore, it is important for us to really understand, conceptualize how we really think about and talk about, and whether a particular event should be called a disaster or a natural event or an extreme event or a hazardous event. What? So these are some of the issues which really we need to understand in the first of all. Next one. Then we also have to understand what is disaster management, and what is disaster resilience, and what is post-disaster recovery, and what is the role of the state, and what should they do. So these are some of the normative questions that it comes to our mind immediately. So do we have the concept of disaster management? We have the law. We have the law, but do we have the practice of disaster management? If you have the practice of disaster management, it has to be systematic. That disaster management should not happen on the day of disaster. It should work all through the year. Disaster management as a practice should take place all through the year, whether there is a disaster or not. Because you should be ready. A disaster, you won't know when it's going to happen. So it could be not even need to be flood. It could be, for instance, blast in Kalpakkam atomic power station. Okay, what kind of a preparedness do we have? It is going to tell you when it's going to happen. Are you going to? You won't know when there is going to be earthquake. One doesn't know. So the issue here is, there's no point in talking about we have disaster management act, but then we should be prepared. What kind of a preparedness do we have? What kind of early warning system do we have? What kind of early action system do we have? So disaster management is something should be institutionalized, and which should work and be visible. It should be dynamic all through. So we don't have that. And secondly, what is disaster resilience? Can we call our country, our society, say for instance Chennai city, as a resilient city? Which is not. What is resilience? Resilience is if there is a disaster or an extreme event or a hazard. After that, the person in the city should be able to get back to its normalcy in a finite time, a week or 10 days or 15 days. Can it happen? Why is it not happening? What are those which are binding or which are negatively acting towards the resilience? And then post-disaster recovery. What kind of a post-disaster recovery plans do we have? If there is a disaster, so you don't have to have the act, but then you have to have some kind of a plan. What is the kind of a plan we have? What kind of a plan do we have? On the day of the disaster, you will have a JCB working. You will remove some hurdles here and there. You will evacuate people on the day of the flood. What is this? We don't want that kind of a post-disaster recovery. Again, we should be prepared and we should really have a plan to do all that. And then again, the state response has been very weak, frankly, to be honest. And then the state should do more than distributing flood relief. And if there is a flood, there is a flood relief. And if there is a drought, there is a drought relief. We should do more than that. What kind of a state response can we think about? So I think institutions in a group like this authorities, I think, should really think about all this. In fact, I was very eager to look at your focus areas. One of the focus areas is water and sanitation. Other one is the conflict resolution. In fact, my heart is very close to both of them because I work on both. The water is an extremely important, commodity. We commoditize now. It's a very important input for the human living. But then, what kind of mechanisms that we have to save water here? We are wasting water. See, during this flood, do you know how much water have we wasted into the sea? Can you guess? 300 TMC feet of water. 300 TMC feet of water. And the city's annual need is 11 TMC feet. Just to make the calculation, how many times that we have wasted. And not only that, we also do one other very clever, very intelligent thing. You know what we do? After letting the water go into the sea, we also do the desalination for drinking. We do that also. So let the water go into the sea and then do the desalination at a cost of 1,000 crores to generate 100 million liters per day. So that's the what kind of a water management is. That's why I said I was very interested to look at your water management, your keen interest in the water. I think we really have to look at all these issues. Therefore, we really have to, so these are issues, and then we have a lot of normative concerns, but then how to put these normative concerns into practice is something is extremely important. And then these are the institutions we have got: the National Disaster Management Authority, National Institute of Disaster Management, Disaster Management Act 2005. Every state and district are supposed to have a disaster management center. During the recent disaster, when it hit Cuddalore, I went to the Cuddalore district, okay, because I was thinking that the center is there. I was trying to locate, and then I was finally directed to a particular cubicle where an officer was sitting. And then I asked him, sir, you are responsible for the disaster management, and can we have some data? I am only having the additional charge, I don't have any information. So he is saying, I am holding the additional charge. So this is its center. This is the disaster management center at the district level. So then you can imagine, see, the Cuddalore disorder was hit. So with that kind of a center, how can a district administration function? That's why I said a center should function, be dynamic all through the year, should be prepared. We don't have that. We have the institutions, we have the act, but unfortunately, we don't have the activities and the dynamism that they should have. So, yeah, please next. I'm going to skip many.
Skip next.
I'm going to skip this also. I just wanted to, yeah. So we have a biggest limitation, which actually I want to really tell you. We have had many floods in the past, we have had many droughts in the past, and we have had tsunami. Suppose if you want to really act usefully, and if you want to really do some good planning for the future disasters, you have to have data. Without data, you cannot manage. You tell me, is there any institution in this country which is holding the database on this kind of a disasters? How kind of a database now can you get on the 2015 flood? Who is going to give you? This is what I call the invisible data. The government of Tamil Nadu is, for instance, asking for 26,000 crores of rupees from the government of India as a flood relief. But there are some basis. Okay, what is that basis? Can you share it with people? Okay, can you? So how many people have died? What is the kind of property loss? And what is the kind of agricultural production loss? Issues of that kind is extremely important for your future planning. But then we don't have that kind of, because there is no assessment. Nobody is going to do the kind of assessment. The one statistic that you readily get is how many people have been distributed with the 5,000 rupees of flood relief. That's all the data that you get, and nothing else. And that's the vote bank politics, purely vote bank politics. And you have to go beyond vote bank politics. Therefore, here in our country, not only in Tamil Nadu, all over the country, this kind of disasters are used as a vote bank politics to only generate votes, and not for really mitigating droughts and mitigating disasters, and really come out as some kind of a good planning for a good future plan to really handle this kind of disaster. We don't have that kind of therefore I think it's extremely important that we generate database, and then please make it available to the people, particularly to the civil society organizations like yours, and then so that people can act on it. look at this, problem, the particular issue, you will know how important it is to really contextualize. First of all, let us not talk about the flood in isolation. How does it happen? There is one, for instance, when a flood is not happening only in Chennai, and the flood doesn't see the city boundary, it goes across everywhere. Therefore, you will see that this particular flood is affected Chennai, Tiruvallur, and Kanchipuram districts as a one contiguous entity and a region. It's completely affected, and this region has been consistently facing the water and the livelihood problems, as also ecological and environmental insecurity. So that is actually one of the important issues that we need to keep in mind. And then secondly, you will also see that a city like Chennai is attracting a lot of migrant population from all over the state and also from all over India. And this kind of a migration is not prosperity induced alone. It's a little bit of a prosperity induced migration is taking place, but then by and large, it is more distress induced migration. People living in the rural areas, driven out of agriculture because of a lack of profitable agriculture, lack of employment, lack of water, for all kinds of reasons. So people migrate, they come here, settle down, and then do all kinds of odd jobs. And then they are the ones who settle themselves anywhere they like. It could be on the river bed, or the tank bed, on the roadside, everywhere, and then get affected, the worst affected due to the flood. And this is this distress-induced migration, which is contributing to the growth of slums. Today, Chennai has a slum population of 40%. And in fact, you will also know that it is very high in Mumbai. In fact, slum population in Mumbai is going to really, more than the regular population, more than 50%. So they're calling it a slum boy, not Mumbai, because slum population is so high. Delhi is so notorious against slum population is very high. Why does this happen? So is there a way to check this kind of a migrant population? So you do the double disadvantage. They come here, get affected, you have to rehabilitate them, you get into all kinds of difficulties, and it affects agriculture. Whereas if you make your agriculture more profitable, they stay back and contribute to agricultural growth, and then your city is also sustainable, and then the carrying capacity is sustained. Now there's a double disadvantage. So that needs to be addressed immediately. So there's no point to talk about the flood, but then address this issue. So all this contribute to what I would call the multiple stresses, adding to the cumulative stresses. Again, it results in differential vulnerability, it results in ecological environmental degradations, and then finally results in ever declining quality of life in the cities. And then when that happens, when there is a disaster, it is really going to become very bad. So you really have to look at this disaster in that huge context. And what is really happening with all that is a climate change. If climate change is no more a fiction, it's a reality. If climate change is really going to affect us, all these disasters are going to become much more intense and affect the population very badly. Now, how are we going to cope with this? Do we have a plan? Again, go back to the institutions that we have. The Disaster Management Authority, what kind of act do we have, what kind of institutions do you have, what kind of a dynamism do we have, all these needs to be addressed. Therefore, depart from the conventional approach, and there is a necessity for rethink. Don't sleep anymore. There is a necessity for rethink, be dynamic, address all these issues so that you address all these disasters at least in future years. Otherwise, your stress and your own kind of a casualty and damages are going to be much more in future. I tell you, 2005 flood is not a small flood. It's equally a bad flood, but the damage was less compared to what you found in 2015. So 2015 we had a flood, huge damage. If it is going to happen again in another 8 or 9 years, definitely intensity is going to be much worse. So every year, if you look at it, historically the floods, damages has been always high. You know why? That is because the high density of population in the city. Today, our population density is 30,000 per square kilometer. Can you imagine? According to 2011 census, what 26,000, we are in 2016, maybe 30,000. So any disaster with that kind of a dense population, it's going to be very badly affected, very bad. So there is a huge kind of a disparity between South Madras and North Madras. We all live in South Madras. We are actually, very fortunate people. If you go to North Madras, you know what kind of a per capita living space they have. I calculated something like 11 square feet per capita. That is the kind of a living space they have in the North Madras. Very bad. Whereas whereas here it is huge, more than 100 square feet. This is what I call the disconnect in the city. We live in one city, but there is a disconnect. There's a different world. North Madras is a different world. South Madras is a different world. Why there can have a disconnect? How can this happen? What is government doing with all this? If there is a disaster, North Madras is going to be affected much worse, very badly, because infrastructure-wise, they are not equipped. We are better off. So issues of this kind needs to be addressed rather than looking at flood in isolation. Next. So now I would like to draw your attention to the flood per se, and let's see what happened. Very quickly. Next. Now, please read these headlines. Approximately 700,000 people were trapped in floods, which also damaged at least 50,000 hectares of agricultural crops. More than 3,000 irrigation tanks and 1,500 river banks channels were breached. Education institutions road, bridges, culverts destroyed, 42 died in stampede in Chennai, etc., etc. Very familiar headlines. Now, what do you get out of this? Please take 10 seconds. What do you get out of this? What do you read out of this? Are you aware? Are you familiar with any of these headlines? These are from the newspaper headlines. You are all familiar. Friends, these are not the headlines of 2015 flood. These are not the headlines of 2015 flood. This is a 2005 flood. Go back to Google search. These are the headlines you get from in 2015. 42 people died in stampede at the collection point of the relief materials. Somewhere in Kekanagar. In a stampede, they stood for the whole day and the night. Suddenly somebody came to distribute the relief material. There's a stampede, people are running, and then 42 people died just to collect the relief material. This happened in 2005. You have forgotten. Our memory is very short. We have completely forgotten. Now we are only talking about 2015 flood. So this is why we are unable to really handle the disaster. Next. So this is the history. 43, 49, 76, 85, 96, 98, 2005. The series of floods we have had. So therefore, if somebody tells me this is the rarest of the rare occurrence, or if somebody tells me that this is if there is a disaster, the people are bound to get lose their properties, etc., and people will die. I mean, if people tell me that this is going to be kind of a natural thing to happen in a disaster, I won't agree, because to me these are not disasters. These are extreme event. If somebody tells me that this is the rarest of a rare occurrence, and this is historically what did they say? It's a worst year in the history, or something like that. Rainfall is the worst year in the history. What is history? What kind of history are they talking about when you have seen this? What kind of history are you talking about? And the USA, as a benchmark, they take the worst year in 300 years. They increased it from 100 to 300 years. We don't have a benchmark. So what kind of history are you talking about? So you have seen the flood. Therefore, don't ever tell me that this is historical and rarest of the rare occurrence. I will not agree, because you have not done anything. Your approach has been kind of a piecemeal ad hoc. Not sustainable, not dynamic. Next. So therefore, if you look at all these, you will see that, urban expansion has been absolutely mindless, unscientific, and there is no land use policy, encroachments on main drainage systems, lack of comprehensive risk assessment, risk mitigation policy, policy for building resilience capacities for city and people, myopic development agenda, utter lack of respect for an institutional mechanism to follow, weather reports and early warning systems. We don't have respect for our weather reports. We are not linked to the international agencies. There is something called the World Meteorological Organization. There is NOAA. These are NASA. These people, these international agencies are extremely good in predicting. We don't have any kind of a link. We don't have any kind of understanding. We don't even think about this. Many people don't even know that these institutions are existing. And we don't have any respect for Ramanan. When Ramanan says something, we ignore. No, so it should happen. So we better be careful.
How accurate is Ramanan?
That is a different matter, sir. You know, I tell you, this time, for the first time, Ramanan used a word called Adiganamarai. Never did he use the word Adiganamarai. And immediately I got back to WMO and NOAA and then to BBC. I discovered that there is going to be cumulative occurrence of the cloud formations. This is exactly what the BBC said. I had the interest to look at it. Why not you? You are the state. You are running the government. You better look at it. Why should I look at it? What is my interest? I am only a citizen of this country. Whereas you have the responsibility, you better look at it. So these are the issues. So we don't respect. You know, if you are even the smallest doubt, I think particularly during the northeast monsoon, you have to be very careful and look for these things. Next. Well, and this is the map which was picked up on the 23rd and November 2015 by National Remote Sensing Center in Hyderabad. It's a plain, no water. Okay, next one. Whereas the picture, the aerial map that was obtained on the 3rd December, you will see all these are the flooded area. You know, the blue ones, completely flooded. And these are the flooded area, you know, which really spread to other parts later on. Next. So the Coombe River, they also have drawn the hydrograph, and this was on December 1st, the peak flood. December 1st had the peak flood, and then the 23rd November also there was one flood, and the last one, that December 1st, they carried something like 98,801 cubic feet. 98,881 cubic feet of water. You know, you have seen the Coombe River. Coombe River is supposed to be something like 60 meters, 70 meters width. On an average, now it is reduced to 20 meters and 25 meters in many places. Can it carry so much of water? There's so much of sludge and silt, and that is why they flood. So this is we are not prepared for it. We have not. We do have a good drainage system, but then we are not prepared to carry the flood. So that's why this is happened. This is cool. Next. Whereas if you look at the Adyar River, it's even worse. It carried on the 1st of December. It carried something like a 1,647 cubic feet of water, much higher. There is a controversy whether it is because of the release of water in the Chambrambakam or not. That's a different matter altogether. This is exactly what happened. Adyar River carried so much of water. What I mean, you find this kind of flood only in Kaveri River, not in Adyar River. We are not prepared for it. Next. Therefore, if we want to really understand the flood, there are 3 issues which we need to really understand. Is very, very important. Let us understand our rainfall pattern. Let us understand our monsoon system. Secondly, we understand our upstream, downstream watershed ecology. And then third, understand what is the status of the fundamentals and the drainage system of the city. First one, the rainfall. From here I won't go into the slide because there's no time. So I will quickly tell you. So if you look at the rainfall, rainfall pattern, sir, I tell you it's very simple. We got 2 rainfalls, southwest monsoon and northeast monsoon. Is it a news to us that we get rainfall from two seasons? It is not. We know it. Okay. And in that, southwest monsoon is very gentle all over the country. That is the biggest monsoon, and that also gives you the kharif crop. Okay, it's a very good monsoon spread over all through the 4 months period from June to September. The next one is a northeast monsoon. Unlike southwest monsoon, northeast monsoon invariably is a rogue monsoon. It's a rogue monsoon. You know it is not gentle. You know that northeast monsoon always brings rainfall through storms and cyclones and depressions and low pressure areas. Is it a news to you? We all know it. All that I can tell you is that we are not prepared for it. We are not acknowledging it. We have not acknowledged it. So we should be prepared. Look, if northeast monsoon is going to bring rainfall, heavy rainfall in 10 to 15 days, and something like this kind of rainfall, let us be prepared to catch it. We are not prepared. So that's our mistake. Don't blame the northeast monsoon. Don't blame the storms and cyclones. Don't blame anybody. So we should be prepared. So that is what I am telling you. So it's important that we acknowledge and understand this rainfall. If we quickly go into, excuse me, if we quickly go into this, and I will try, one more. Look at this graph. 70 years of rainfall in this in this area, Chennai, Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram district, the average rainfall is 1,350 millimeters. Average rainfall. You will see that it is always in many years it is more than 1,200. See, 1,200 more plus is a huge rainfall, and still you call yourself a thirstiest city. Chennai is considered a thirstiest city when you get so much of rainfall. Jaipur's rainfall is 550 millimeters. In Israel, the rainfall is 360 millimeters. They are one of the biggest exporters for flowers and fruits and vegetables with 360 millimeters. With so much of rainfall, you call yourself thirsty and you get stuck with flood. So what is wrong with you? Something seriously wrong with you. It's not wrong. It's wrong with the system. So you fail to understand your system, meteorological system. Therefore, you cannot blame anybody. So second one that I want to really tell you is it doesn't matter. About the upstream, downstream watersheds. You see, in Chennai, Tiruvallur, Kanchipuram, 3 districts are beautifully located districts with a very good integration of topography-wise, elevation-wise, and rainfall-wise. So the flood that you get in Chennai is not because of the rainfall that you had that fell on the city. The water has come from the upstream. So in Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram, there is going to be heavy rainfall. Water has to go into the sea only after crossing the city, only after crossing Chennai. So water has to come here, but you've got a drainage system. So the system has really developed a fantastic drainage system, and in fact I must tell you, these 2 districts has got something like a 3,600 irrigation tanks, small, medium and big. Beautiful drainage system, beautiful watersheds we have. If you save water in all these, you save something like 70 to 80 TMC feet of water, whereas city needs is 11 TMC feet. Even if you take into account the Tiruvallur Kanchipuram district's needs, you may need about 16 or 17 TMC feet, or at best 20 TMC feet. But you have enough water to save, you have enough reservoirs to save. You have rainfall, we have reservoirs to save, but you don't. All these tanks are encroached, silted up and neglected, but unfortunately, you also have a double disadvantage. What is the double disadvantage? You lose water, you let water go into the sea, and you are affected by flood, and you are also, unfortunately, not saving your water, and you have lost it, and then you become thirsty. Again, in the next May, you are going to have a serious drinking water problem here, having seen the huge flood. Having wasted 300 TMC feet of water, you are going to have a water scarcity. Something seriously wrong. So if you really just quickly go into that, I just wanted to, these are the number of tanks. Next one. Next one. This is the 2 districts. That small enclave on your right is Chennai city. Otherwise, these two are the districts, Chennai and Tiruvallur district. Upper one is the Tiruvallur, lower one is the Kanchipuram district. These are all the irrigation tanks, water bodies. You got so many water bodies. This I could really map it in the GIS, Geographic Information System. These are live. If you put it in the GIS, you will see that every one of this gives you data. Every one of these blue one gives you data. These are the reservoirs. We have so many tanks. Next one, if you look at it, the next one, this is the very complicated, very complex drainage system that you have. But this drainage system is completely encroached, meddled with, and now it doesn't exist anymore. And it is all blocked. So the water that falls on the upstream has to go down. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. It is all completely blocked. So that is why you see the flood. So unless you preserve this drainage system, unless you preserve the water bodies, there is no point, because you will see that a small enclave Chennai has to get the water passed next. So this is the Adyar River. We always say that Adyar River, Chambarambakam, Adyar River is always linked to Chambarambakam. You will see that Adyar River is linked to so many tanks. That's why whenever Adyar River carries flood, the water from all these tanks also has to go through the Adyar River. So that is why this flood. And this is the Chennai metropolitan area. Within the Chennai metropolitan area of 1,172 square kilometers, you got 142 tanks, even today. But this 142 tanks has the water spread area of 96 square kilometers. Now the builders and all other encroachers are just keeping their eyes very, very open to encroach at any time, because this comes within the Chennai metropolitan area. Unfortunately, there are no plans to maintain it. So this is so much about the upstream watershed. The next one is the drainage system. Of all the cities in the country, Chennai has the most important and unique drainage system. You got on the north, you got a Kosasthalayare, on the central you got a Kom river, on the south you got Adyar river, and further south you got Pala river, and cutting across all the four you got Pakyam Canal. You got a fantastic drainage system, but with all the good drainage system, you still have flood. Why? And plus you got a the Pallikarnam marshland, which also can carry so much of flood water. You destroyed everything. The pride of Chennai, the IT corridor, 60–70% of it is in the flood-prone area of the Pallikarnam marsh, and so that's why all these industries have had to got affected due to flood. Therefore, with a very good drainage system, again we did not really preserve, and so we are paying for it. All that I am trying to say here is that our own understanding, the way we handle and the way we plan is something which we need to really change, and we need to rethink. Unless we have a rethink, if we are going to have recurrence of this flood again and again, we'll have serious difficulties. Yeah. Quickly, I finished more or less. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's all finished. Yeah, these are all the drainage systems that we have. Yes. Yeah, this is Pallikarnam wetland. So if you look at this Pallikarnam wetland, this is a wetland that you have. This is original, but unfortunately it is now encroached and very badly occupied, and that is why it is flood. Next. Yeah, next. And see, these are all the Pallikarnam marshland. Pallikarnam marshland is one of the most important ecosystems. Chennai, as a district, now having this wetland. No other city has this kind of a wetland. 7,000 hectares of land. We destroyed. It is now reduced to something like 600 hectares, and even that is with the smoke and with all kinds of encroachments. You will see next, and you will see that the big road is cuts across the Pallikarnam marsh, and all these big buildings are located on the Pallikarnam marsh, including this Meenakshi Hospital and all that. So I finished more or less. I have nothing else to say. So therefore, all that I am trying to say here is that we need to really think about our plan well, and we need to really understand our drainage system. We need to understand our rainfall pattern, and then our plan should be to declare Chennai Tiruvallur Kanjakur as one mega watershed, and to maintain this watershed, and so that you save water and then save Chennai from the flood. And if you don't do this, this is going to happen again and again. Therefore, it is important that without wasting any further time, declare this region as a one mega watershed and then save rainwater, and that's extremely important. And then the government should have a plan for resilience and for disaster management. That's also very, very important, because Chennai being a coastal city and Tamil Nadu having the second longest coastline of 1,061 square kilometer length, climate change is going to affect us very, very badly, and in the years to come. Therefore, we have to be prepared for it, and we have to be prepared. So we are not prepared at the moment. So it is extremely important that we really acknowledge all these issues, and then make sure that the next flood, whenever it happens in another 5 years or 6 years, I'm sure its intensity is going to be it's going to be worse. But then we should be prepared, and we will be prepared unless we are cautious, unless we put pressure on the government. Nothing is going to happen. I think institutions like yours, the clubs like you, and the people like you, I think have greater role to play. Apart from the flood relief, etc., we need to do more. In fact, I prepared what is called a citizen's charter. I can pass on a copy to you, and then I have sent it to through our the people who worked on the flood in the last 2–3 months. We have sent it to different government agencies, and I will send a copy to you also. Please have a look at it. I think we need to really work on it collectively, and you need a collective response. And individuals, at the moment, individuals have been working in bits and pieces in a sort of unorganized fashion. We need to come together as in a single platform, address this flood as a huge issue. It's going to affect everybody. And since the flood, we have seen the intensity, its worst fury in the last 3 months. Be prepared to really see this once more, and then the point in acting at the time of the flood, and we need to act pretty fast, and let's have a plan for it. I think that's what I want to say. That's a key message.